Meet David, a devoted husband who has always believed in the sanctity of marriage. For him, life with his wife, Sarah, felt picture perfect. They met in college, a classic love story that blossomed from friendship into something real and lasting. They were inseparable, moving in together, traveling, and planning their future like so many couples do. To everyone around them, they were the ideal pair, always smiling, always there for each other, always that relationship goals couple. But as much as David wanted to believe their love was unbreakable, small changes started creeping in. It wasn't obvious at first, just little things: a shift in tone, a slight coolness in her gaze, those quick, "I'm busy" responses when he asked about her day. Sarah was always on her phone, a habit he never questioned until now. But the more it happened, the more David felt an unsettling nagging, like a faint whisper that refused to be ignored. David dismissed it at first. After all, every couple goes through phases, right? Maybe Sarah was just stressed from work, or maybe they'd grown a little too comfortable. But over time, these minor things started adding up, forming a puzzle he couldn't solve. Where once there was warmth, now he felt a wall. Her laughs felt hollow, her touch distant, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something vital was slipping away. One evening, as they sat in their cozy living room watching TV, David couldn't focus on the screen. He noticed her glancing at her phone, her face flashing with emotions that didn't match the scene they were watching. That was the moment he knew there was more here than met the eye. His heart raced with a mixture of anger and dread, but he forced himself to stay calm, to keep observing without reacting. If Sarah was hiding something, he was determined to uncover it. The perfect cover story would be her upcoming birthday. She loved hosting parties, loved the attention and celebration. David could already picture the evening, filled with laughter, family, and friends. But deep down, he had a different plan in mind. This birthday wouldn't just be a celebration, it would be his chance to reveal the truth and see if his suspicions were real. As he prepared to face the hardest truth of his life, David knew one thing: he would need evidence, a solid, undeniable case. For now, he'd play along, but inside, he was already a different man, one ready to face the heartbreak if it came to that. And little did Sarah know, the birthday she was looking forward to would be the day everything changed. David's suspicion had become a heavy weight he carried everywhere. At first, he'd told himself it was nothing, just insecurities. But as the days passed, he couldn't ignore the small details that didn't add up: the private messages she'd quickly close, the excuses for late nights, the way she'd turned her phone screen away whenever he walked by. His heart ached at the thought, but he knew he had to find out the truth, no matter the cost. One night, while Sarah was in the shower, David's opportunity presented itself. Her phone buzzed, and the screen lit up with a name he didn't recognize. Heart pounding, he glanced down and saw a notification from a messaging app he hadn't seen her use before. He felt a twinge of guilt, but the feeling was overpowered by a need to know. With trembling hands, he opened the app and saw a thread of messages that left little room for doubt. Flirty, intimate words, private photos, and plans to meet up, each line stabbed at his heart, confirming the betrayal he'd hoped wasn't real. The room seemed to spin around him as he read, barely breathing. How long had this been going on? Was it serious? As he scrolled, David realized that Sarah hadn't just been flirting. There were months' worth of messages, casual check-ins, and shared secrets that should have been his alone. She had been living a double life right in front of him, and he hadn't seen it until now. But Sarah was careful. It was clear she'd made an effort to cover her tracks, deleting messages and even blocking certain contacts when they were together. He could tell she'd tried to erase anything that might give her away. But tonight, in her rush, she hadn't checked her notifications. Her mistake was his first proof. When Sarah came back from the shower, she glanced at David, who was lost in thought, still reeling from the messages he'd just read. His heart was in pieces, but he knew he had to play it cool. He looked up, smiled faintly, and pretended nothing was wrong. His mind, however, was racing with questions, torn between anger, heartbreak, and disbelief. Over the next few days, he kept an even closer eye on her. He noticed her laughing softly at her phone, caught her excusing herself more often for errands, and watched as her affection toward him grew more distant. Every little thing was now suspect, every word and smile calculated. The woman he loved was slipping away before his eyes, replaced by a stranger he barely recognized. But David knew one thing: he wasn't going to confront her without undeniable proof. If he was going to expose her betrayal, he'd do it right, at her birthday party, in front of everyone who thought they knew the real Sarah. With the initial shock fading, David's focus sharpened. His heartbreak had hardened into resolve. If Sarah was living a double life, he would lay everything bare. The birthday party she eagerly anticipated would be his opportunity, a perfectly timed event where all their closest family and friends would gather, unknowingly set to witness the truth. But first, he needed undeniable evidence, something so concrete that she couldn't deny it. He began by keeping an eye on her routines and habits, noticing patterns in her excuses. She often claimed to be working late or meeting friends he'd never met. David had always trusted her, never questioning her reasons. But now, he saw her stories for what they were, careful cover-ups for another relationship. Every time she left, he felt a pang of anger and sadness, but used it to fuel his search for answers. David's next step was to get digital evidence. He knew she'd probably deleted most incriminating messages, so he set up software on their shared devices to automatically save her incoming texts and messages. This way, anything that appeared, even briefly, would be stored securely out of her reach. It felt underhanded, but David knew that if he confronted her too soon, she'd simply delete everything and deny it all. With each passing day, his digital trove grew. The messages he recovered confirmed his worst fears. She was meeting someone, sharing moments that should have been theirs alone. Occasionally, her words would sting. In particular, she'd talk about her tiring home life, hinting that she felt trapped. Reading those lines felt like salt in a wound, but they only strengthened his resolve. He would make sure everyone saw the truth. As her birthday neared, David meticulously planned every detail of the party. He decided to project the evidence for everyone to see. He bought a small projector and tested it out late at night when she was asleep, creating a slideshow of the messages and photos he'd recovered. He knew it sounded dramatic, but he felt this was the only way to expose her deception without her slipping away with more lies. On the surface, David acted normally, playing the part of the loving husband organizing his wife's big day. He ordered decorations, planned the guest list, even arranged for her favorite cake. It hurt to pretend everything was fine, but he wanted her guard down. He needed her to walk into the party thinking it was just another year, another celebration. Inside, David was a mix of nerves and steely determination. He kept replaying how he would reveal everything, imagining her reaction and the shock of their guests. Soon, Sarah's secrets would be laid bare for everyone to see. The night of Sarah's birthday party had finally arrived. David stood by the door, greeting their friends and family with a smile that hid the storm brewing inside him. The house was decorated beautifully, lights strung up, laughter filling the air, and the smell of Sarah's favorite dishes wafting from the kitchen. To everyone else, it was just another joyous celebration, but David's heart raced as he prepared for what would come. Sarah entered the room, glowing and cheerful, dressed in her best. She had no idea what awaited her and greeted each guest with excitement, clearly thrilled by the love and attention. David watched her closely, his stomach twisting as he thought of the woman he once trusted completely. For a brief moment, he questioned his plan, wondering if this public exposure was truly the right thing to do. But then he remembered the betrayal, the lies, and the double life she'd been leading right in front of him. His resolve hardened. As the evening progressed, guests mingled, laughing and sharing stories, oblivious to the tension brewing beneath the surface. David forced himself to socialize, acting as if nothing was wrong. He'd already prepped the projector, hidden away in a small corner of the room, ready for the moment he'd been planning. Sarah's parents were there, friends from college, and even colleagues from work, a perfect audience for the truth. When the time came to gather everyone for the birthday toast, David took a deep breath. Standing at the center of the room, he tapped his glass, silencing the crowd as he captured everyone's attention. Sarah looked at him, smiling, clearly touched by the special moment. But he could see the subtle shift in her expression when he began speaking. "First, I want to thank everyone for being here to celebrate Sarah's birthday," David began, his voice steady but cold. "Tonight is a celebration, but it's also a moment of revelation." A murmur rippled through the crowd, and Sarah's smile faltered. David continued, "For the past few months, I've felt like I've been living with a stranger. A stranger I thought I could trust. So tonight, I want you all to meet the person Sarah has become." He gestured toward the projector, and the lights dimmed as the first message appeared on the screen. A wave of confusion spread through the guests as they read the intimate, incriminating messages. David heard gasps, saw shocked faces, and felt Sarah's gaze on him, wide-eyed and panicked. The images and texts left little room for denial, each one a stark reminder of the betrayal. Sarah's face went pale, her composure cracking as the reality of her exposure set in. She stammered, trying to explain, but her voice was drowned out by the whispers and stares of friends and family, horrified by what they were seeing. Her parents looked devastated, her friends confused and angry. "David, please, this isn't the place for this," Sarah managed to say, her voice trembling. But David held his ground, his voice steady. "You made choices, Sarah, and now everyone sees what they cost." The room was thick with tension as Sarah fled, her once perfect world shattered in a matter of minutes. David watched her go, feeling a strange sense of release. It was over. The lies, the deceit, it was all in the open now. He turned back to their stunned guests, thanked them for coming, and walked away, leaving the remnants of their. In the days following the party, the dust slowly began to settle, but life was far from normal. The dramatic public revelation had left lasting scars not only on David and Sarah, but on everyone who witnessed it. Family members and friends were left reeling, processing the shock of seeing a marriage unravel in such a public, raw way. David's phone buzzed nonstop with messages, some from friends expressing support, others simply shocked, unsure of what to say. David, meanwhile, was navigating a whirlwind of emotions. There was anger, yes, but also a deep sadness, a hollow emptiness where his life with Sarah used to be. He had loved her once, and part of him mourned the version of her he had believed in. He tried to keep his mind occupied, pouring himself into work, reaching out to friends he'd drifted away from, and spending time with family. Still, each night was hard, the silence in their home a constant reminder of what he had lost and what he had discovered. Sarah attempted to reach out a few times, apologizing, trying to explain her actions, but David wasn't interested. Their trust was shattered, beyond repair. He told her plainly that he couldn't ever look at her the same way. It was over. The divorce process began almost immediately, with both of them agreeing to separate as cleanly as possible. They divided assets, sorted through belongings, and officially severed the life they'd built together. The experience was surreal. The woman he'd once planned to grow old with was now someone he'd barely recognized. Throughout this period, David received countless opinions, unsolicited advice, and comments from everyone around him. Friends advised him to move on, family encouraged him to find closure, and some even told him to get back out there. But David needed time to heal, to understand who he was now after everything he had been through. He started attending therapy, where he learned to process his feelings, rebuild his sense of self-worth, and gradually work through the pain. In time, David found a strange sense of peace. While he hadn't wanted his marriage to end this way, he recognized that uncovering the truth had freed him from a life of lies. His anger began to fade, replaced by a cautious optimism. He'd learned hard lessons about love, trust, and resilience, and while the pain would take time to fully heal, he now felt ready to move forward. He surrounded himself with people who supported him, embraced hobbies he'd once put aside, and focused on building a future that, this time, was his alone. As David took his first steps into a new life, he shared one final thought with those who had supported him: cherish the people you trust. But never be afraid to face the truth, even if it means letting go. As David moved forward, he carried with him the lessons learned from the painful chapter he'd just closed. The heartbreak, the betrayal, it had all been a painful but necessary journey toward reclaiming his life. Through the betrayal of someone he once loved, he discovered his own strength and resilience, something he hadn't realized he was capable of. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in months, he felt a glimmer of hope. For anyone watching, David's story serves as a powerful reminder: trust is fragile, and sometimes the hardest truths are the ones we must face. But confronting the truth, no matter how painful, can lead to the freedom and clarity needed to build a life that's authentically your own. Betrayal doesn't define you. How you rise from it does. If you've found yourself in a similar situation or just need some support through life's toughest moments, remember you're not alone. Don't be afraid to confront your own truth. It's never easy, but in the end, it's worth it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more real-life drama and life lessons. Stay strong and take care.